Boom. Good evening. It is what now? It is 6:30 here on the East Coast in Atlanta, Georgia. We are continuing the conversation with the candidates here in Atlanta, Georgia. If y'all don't know, there is an election coming up. So most definitely go out and vote and get involved. I am Waukesha Howe. I am a community champion, and I am here with my lovely co-host, Miss Sherelle. And I want to start off with a little disclaimer. We are not bought and paid by anybody. These are just regular parents and community members that want to have a conversation with the candidates. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Erika Mitchell. And let me say this, Erika, why Mitchell? Baby, I was like, how I leave that why out of there? Why Mitchell? Okay. So I'm gonna start with the little icebreaker, and this is a good one. So go on to get ready. What did you have to do? What did you have to give up to achieve your current level of success?
Ooh, wow. It's I don't know if I call it success. I call it meeting milestones in my life. Um, I think me is if I decide to do something and I go after it and I achieve it, I met that milestone that I was shooting for. And I never ever looked at it as being successful. I just looking at it as I was able to achieve a goal. And for me, I look at it as goals. And then what did I give up to achieve that goal? Sometimes you got to eliminate the wrong people in your life to get focused. You got to be still. You you got to be still because you got to be able to hear. You got to be able to listen. You got to be able to go with your intuition and your divine spirit to guide you. Because in this world, people will guide you the wrong way. But if you got to listen to yourself to navigate through all of the noise. And so being still is key. I think I gained that because at one time I didn't have that because I was listening to so many different people pulling me so many different ways. And I wasn't looking within myself for guidance. And so, what did I give up? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I could say I gave up. I could say what I brought in to help me to achieve what I've been looking for. Because I was never a person that ran the streets. Like a lot of people like a socialites. I'm not. I just socialize enough to get the job done and then keep moving. So I don't know. I think I brought in what I need to help me get to where I need to go instead of eliminating something to get there outside of the wrong people, the negative energy, and the wrong advice. I gave that up because I got tired of listening to them.
Wow, that was deep and that was powerful. Because sometimes you do have to just move people out the way. And that whole being still part, my God.
Oh, that's it. And you got to come back to it every time. You know, when things ain't, be still. Be still.
Yep. Please. And thank you. So with that being said, I really appreciate that. Go ahead and tell us, who are you and why are you running?
Well, my name is Erika Mitchell, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. Gosh, let's see. Native Georgian. My parents born and raised here in Atlanta. Grandparents moved here from different parts of Georgia to come off the farms into the city in the early 1900s. I live in the community that I serve. Let me just say that. Collier Heights is where I live. I've been here for 17 years. I decided to raise my family over here. See, this neighborhood was good enough for my grandparents to move in to build their first home and to raise their 3 sons. Why is it not good for me to raise my children? And I thought about that as I came over here because growing up, I saw my grandparents being very active in their community, neighborhood associations. Then the development of NPUs came along. They were doing that in the 80s and 90s. I saw them care for the community which they lived in and supporting the schools and this and the children in the community. And I was like, where did that go? Can we get that back? And I was like, that's something I grew up seeing. I grew up in Southwest Atlanta, so Collier Heights is Northwest Atlanta. It was a 10-minute drive. And for me, working in the sports industry before I transitioned into a school board, just briefly, I had an opportunity to go and put programs together for the NFL Players Association, Metro Atlanta chapter. And one of the programs we put together was Read to Succeed. Readers are leaders type of initiative. And at the current time, I was working with former board member Stephen Lee. Developed this literacy program with the NFL. We go into the schools. We had the players come in and read and do all kind of things. And that's when I started to see these schools ain't what I thought they were. And not saying that in a bad way. It's just that I had a different expectation of what I thought it would be, especially after I've been out of school for over 20 something years. I was like, oh, we still doing this. So anyhow, there was a lot of room for improvement. And then after looking at that, I was like, well, I want to do more. I want to help more. I was involved with my children's schools that they were going to, and still are in APS. And it was that day I, again, was being still, and it came to me, run for school board. If you run, you try. If you try, you just never know what impact you can make on people. But it's when you don't try, you can't complain. You can't point the finger because you're not doing anything to help the situation. So that's a little bit about me and why I run. But I really, truly believe that every child, every student in the city of Atlanta and state of Georgia, all over the world, deserve a quality, and equitable education. That is a human right. That is a civil right. And I'd be damned if we take it from them because we ain't doing our jobs. That has to stop. And that's why I'm on the school board.
That part right there. You touched on history in the West Side. I'm from the West Side as well. And so what do you remember from back in the days that really had you engaged in school that we don't have now that you wish you can bring back?
Oh my God. I tell you, one thing I loved when I was in school was the different assemblies that we would have, different people coming to speak to us. It really exposed us. Also, I mean, I love going to home economics. I mean, we be in there trying to cook, all kind of things. Sewing, people learning how to iron for the first time. It was something. It was fun. Woodwork, wood shop. I mean, making a bird house. Come on, that stuff was fun. I miss those type of activities, and we started out in middle school doing that. You know, way before we got to high school, that was middle school. Just the way it was structured. School was fun. Even if the people struggled, it still was fun, you know, because you still had an opportunity to do your activities. Those electives were key. Now, I'm not saying we don't do it now, but I think we don't do it in that in the capacity that we did when I was growing up. You know, now this is so much flexibility and autonomy. You can choose to do it if you want to. Everybody had to take wood shop. Everybody had to take home economics. Don't come in here because you got more credits and you don't know everybody had to. And it made you work with different students that you would normally not see in your regular classes. And I don't know. I can't. It's not done to that capacity like it was when I was growing up. I saw a community. You know, if your teacher lived on the street, you know you better be good because you can go back and tell your mama what you've been doing in school. Because we had a teacher living around the corner from us, and we were like, "Ooh, we got to behave in her class," but they could tell your mom, your dad. You know, so you still have people who work for the schools living in the community, and that's a big difference. That's a big difference.
And it made school so much fun. And what I can say is our teachers understood. They did look like us.
Yeah.
And we had a mixture, but they understood. And what I do remember, they always loved on us. Like they always,
Yes.
like I said, this my West Side Story experience. They always loved on us while they were educating us.
It did.
We had kids that maybe misbehaved, but it is not 2023, you know. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but as kids poured into the school, they know that they were being left with people who really care
Care
about
for
them,
them. Mm-hmm.
hands down. And it was community.
Yeah.
You knew if you did something, she
Mm-hmm.
was gonna tell your mama,
Yep.
and not even just the teacher, the neighbors. Like we really looked out for each other. So let me
Yep.
ask you this: what need do you see in your district right now with the children and the family? What are some of their greatest needs that you see needs to be addressed, whether it's with you guys or just in general?
So what I see is a disconnect. Community parents don't feel welcome in the schools. They don't. They do not. That's just a simple fact. I'm not saying all the schools in my area like that, but there's some that work. And I will tell you, and the new leadership in that school is working on repairing that relationship. That's one of the things that I know that was missing. Um, we have some dynamic principals um, that are still here, that was here before me, and then we have some that transition in because we just needed good, solid new leadership, and we might have one that might need to transition out, but you know, um, that's not my decision to make. But when I think about the need is that parent, community, and school engagement. Um, we can support the things that the parents say. They work, they can't, they don't care. You can say whatever you want to say. As I say, every parent wants the best for their child. I don't care where they come from, what type of English they speak, what kind of job they have, what kind of house, apartment, whatever. They want the best for their child. Now, do we have barriers that keep them from being active? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Could we be more engaging with them? Yes, we can. I think that's where the opportunity is. I will tell you this: we had some principals during the pandemic went door to door. They went door to door. Those are good principals, and it was a lot of them in my area that did that. They went to the community. They went to those students because they want them to know that we care about you. We're gonna make sure you get what you need. That's the type of leadership that should be at all schools, connecting with those families, not putting barriers where they can't connect with the school. So that's the greatest need outside of things that school board's not responsible for. But we're going to be responsible for housing, affordable housing, right? We're not responsible for that, but we can be. And I think we have a plan because that's the other need. We have a big mobility rate. We need to keep these families in stable housing. And then we need to make sure they have stable income. Okay. And then we need to make sure they have some resources. I think when you know better, you do better. But we can't keep looking down on people and talking at them and think, oh, they want to be engaged. No, they don't want to be engaged. Because if you talk down to me and looked at me funny, I wouldn't want to come back to the building anyway. So we gotta treat our families a little bit better. We do. We are in service. That's what we do. It's not the other way around.
Right. So with that being said, could you tell us a few things that you have done yourself to kind of help remove those barriers or bridge the gap so that families can feel comfortable with going into the school and just connecting the school with the community?
Well, one of the things we try to work on is what so you asked me was I did a community engagement plan when I first came on the board, and I would host community meetings once a month, and then I would try to do things around the school. When the school had different events, I would try to come around to really engage the families, put them on the email list, text messages, whatever I could do to start getting them engaged with me, knowing what my role is as your board member. whether you voted for me or not. I'm here to serve. So I need you to understand what it is that I do. And if you have any recommendations, issues, complaints, just thoughts or statements, you can always reach out to me. So we can still have that ongoing communication. So that's one of the things that I really, really focused on coming on as a new board member. I know I did my first community fair. I call it a little fair, just real small. It was at Collier Park. It was at Collier Park, yeah. And we had a lot of different community parents from that area to come out. We had all kind of little fun activities for the kids, but then resources for the parents, and that was just the beginning of much more I wanted to do. And that's how I started, and then we transitioned into those meetings at the library when I could before the pandemic, and then after the pandemic we have Zoom, right? But that was the start, and that's one of the things I tried to do to ensure that I stay connected with my families, and I'm still doing it now. I mean, this week I had a big meeting at the library, and that was in person. I haven't been back to the library since 2019, right. Or the beginning of 2020.
Let me tell you, I really appreciate your chat, your monthly, is it bi-monthly chats that you have?
Now they want to do bi-monthly, but it was monthly. Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate that because they gave us an opportunity, and I know we were there to come on and talk to you, raise some concerns. I can say that I have seen some concerns that came to you. They've been taken care of, and people are feeling much better, and they're moving into a better space as far as their education community. Because I always say, listen now, for all these taxes we pay, we need to see a better return on our education investment. So with that being said, partnerships. What type of partnership have you brought to APS in the communities that you serve? And I want to lift this up. The late Miss Mary, oh my gosh. She tried so hard because I went to Harper Archer. She tried so hard to get that Harper Archer planetarium back going. And so Miss Sherry, she'll get me if I didn't bring this up too. I know that's one thing that those two have worked. They have worked to get that back online. What type of partnerships have you bought, or what can we do in the future to bring things like that back to life? Because I went to Harper, my father went to Harper, and so we had that right there. Yeah, we didn't have to go downtown or travel over in Midtown. We had a lot of stuff in our communities. Like if you go on up, like near what we at Martin Luther King, Hollis has like a Olympic sized pool. So we had some great stuff in our schools. How can we revitalize them or just bring them back to life to benefit the children and their families in our communities with the partnerships? Because I know, APS say they got a lot of partnership. I see people a lot. But what partnership have you bought and you're thinking about bringing that could really help us build, rebuild stuff like that?
So when we talk about partnerships that I brought, I'm gonna have to do a roll call real quick because it was a lot. And let me just pull some of it up. The reason why, because I saw a need. I saw a need, and I wanted to connect these partners with the schools. Hold on one second. Whether it was me traveling to Los Angeles to get a partnership with Capitol Records to bring back to Douglas High School, or working with the Falcons to help donate cleats and gloves and any kind of apparel that they could for our boys football team, because I truly believe a child should not have to sit out playing football because their parents can't afford cleats, because those things are expensive, especially when you got over a size 12 foot, okay? And those shouldn't be barriers that parents have to face. Parent university collaboration brought to the district. Just because I feel like you serve the child, you also serve the family. It's a full circle. You don't do one without the other. It's a package deal, So that was one good thing. Georgia's Own Credit Union, they came through during the pandemic. I mean, when I brought Gooder as a partnership with with food insecurity, Georgia Zone Credit Union stepped up and like, look, we're gonna buy groceries. And they had those groceries delivered at those parents' homes. We got the list from the social workers. We already had a heat map. We had activated everything before the district even had a plan, because I knew that my babies were gonna go hungry if we didn't do something. We didn't need to wait a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to figure this out. You know, when it's emergency and a crisis, you get your hands in, all hands on deck, not just, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. Let me slap your hand. Don't slap my hand. I'm working. You know, I'm working for my people because that's what I was elected to do. But that's a whole long another story on that side. Even developing a relationship with Chick-fil-A on Cascade Road when they first opened to ensure that we had a relationship with them. They would hire the students from our schools, our surrounding schools. They could partner with the different schools to bring different programs or support different initiatives that those schools had. Visiting juvenile courts, working with youth sparks to develop the first domestic minor sex trafficking policy, because guess what? We need awareness, and we need to, with awareness is prevention. Let me just say that. And if you teach these students what this look like, they could better protect themselves. And if you help, if the students and not students, but the staff and anybody who work with the district can identify warning signs, guess what? You just help save the child. Here's another one. You First Project. You First Project with Erika Wright, that really helped donate school supplies, hygiene kits, and work on hygiene closets for the different schools. Because guess what? If you're not getting it at home, you can get it here. You know, sometimes you look at a school as a place where they have resources, a safe haven. The scholarships from the NFL Association, NFL Players Association was another one. 100 Black Men. I mean, the late Mr. Dortch had really funded a lot of programs for APS, especially in the Mays and Douglas cluster. Anytime I need to reach out to him to pay for a trip or something for the kids, he did it. And he didn't ask he didn't even ask like how much you need. Just send it to me and we'll get it done. And that helped a lot of children be able to get exposed to do a lot of different things. And you know, I'm grateful for that friendship relationship with that I had with him to really help our district. The Launchpad Foundation, We Read Together, which was founded by Kenny Hill, to help tutor our students. Reading, help them prepare for the milestones. Operation Hope, John Hope Bryant, financial literacy. He also helped us with receiving a donation of 100 air purification systems during COVID. So it went into every school. Kodak, who donated 52,000 masks to the schools during the pandemic. Comcast Care Day, that I partnered with Atlanta Hawks with to build a robotics lab in Miles Elementary School and to do a beautification project. Even Porsche Experience Center, who helped to get, I don't know, a bunch of school supplies for Woodson Park Elementary School under Dr. McClendon. Fuel Up the Play 60 grants that we were able to give to schools to help with their nutrition program and fund anything around nutrition that would help those kids learn more about diets and just, you know, healthy eating. We also have Adidas with Jen Welters, the girls flag football camps. I'm a big person on sports. I think, you know, sports is for females, not limited to my boys, but for females, it helps build character, leadership skills, time management, work ethics, confidence, self-esteem. So it's very important that, you know, we work with girls in the sports arena, but not limited to other things like lacrosse, that we did a lacrosse camp or golf camp. Just whatever we can do with these different schools was great. And our partnership with Atlanta Airport was really key with a lot of things that I was able to do. With Women's History Month, with human trafficking, just partnership to get our students employed at the airport. And so I'm gonna pause there on that, but I want to get to the planetarium. So let me tell you about this planetarium. When my community brought me to planetarium, I was like, this is amazing. I had no idea. I don't know why it's such a challenge for the planetarium to be funded by APS, but it's a challenge. So I was told it couldn't be, and it wouldn't be. Didn't matter how much my community advocated for it, that wasn't going to happen. I was like, okay, oh yeah, yeah. So now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put together what I can put together. And I'm gonna tell you, I went and asked everybody for money for this planetarium. I went to ask, I remember we was in Washington, D.C. I asked with this guy, he was a U.S. Senator at the time, David Perdue. Yes, I did. Because they get government funding for STEM, STEAM, and science. It's federal money. It's not red or blue. It's federal. Let me just be honest with that, okay? So I did ask him, and his team helped me to identify some of those grants, okay? We needed a grant writer, but didn't get that from the district. I had to figure that out on my own. Yeah. So then I started reaching out to those different grants to see if we could, get grants or whatever. And so principal at Harper Archer, Dion Simon, she was like, Erika, I'm gonna work with you. We're gonna figure this out. And so she said that was one of the things that she wanted to make sure she did for the community because they advocated so hard for that planetarium. And so I've been working with Dion Simons for the past couple of years. I even had Anthony Poe, who did the iVillage at Hamilton E. Holmes train station. He was the architect for that. He did a model of the planetarium, a digital model that we could use to show different partners of what we were looking for. And so last year we met. There was like, we got some interest in someone who wants to, a company who wants to invest in a planetarium. And then early this year we met, we had our first meeting. I was able to bring IBM, Dell, and a couple other people to the table, as well as Dion did, Dr. Simons did as well. And now we are at the stage where we have a financial funder for the planetarium. Now it's up to the parents in the community to design, to decide what they want, but it's going to happen. And you should hear something soon. I can't give a lot of details to who and what because they're still finalizing a lot of things, but the planetarium is coming back. And I am so glad. We it's been 5 months and 10 years, but we finally there, huh?
I know Miss Mary would be so happy. Like, they give me chills because I know that was one of her fights, before she left here, to see that planetarium, up and running. So I'm so, even though that ain't even my community or my area, but I'm from the West side. I love the West side. But I really appreciate that all of you guys coming together and pulling those resources together to make sure that happened, because that was a vital resource right there in our own community. No transportation and busing and lunch. It's right downstairs. You can go and just enjoy this here. So, and let me say this, because you don't see this happening much. I appreciate you reaching across the aisle to ask people who don't look like you, hey, is it a way you can help me to help the kids in my community? Because that is so needed. And sometimes, what Big Mama say, look, you don't have because you don't ask.
That's it.
And we just have to ask, and we'll be surprised who don't mind helping. So with that, I want to ask you this, and I'm gonna turn over to Miss Sharia. I don't think you're part of the joint committee, but they just met. And so one of the things that just came out, the juvenile court, they have a whole bunch of resources. It sounded like it was a big federal grant. They're doing some really great work with Fulton County. But in the meeting, they were like, we have not been able to get no traction with APS. The MOU is sitting in somewhere on the desk in a computer somewhere, but we have the resources to help. We just don't, nobody has moved. Yeah. So I did just hear a few minutes ago that Dr. Battle is looking into it, and she's going to probably have a meeting soon. what are your thoughts about that? We have people, partners, that are willing, but because they don't maybe have a look, or people feel a certain type of way with connecting to them, we lose out on the opportunity to have resources that can help our children.
Yeah, we do lose out on a lot of those opportunities because I think sometimes we have people who work for our district, and no offense intended, that don't understand the uniqueness of the need and how to align resources and partnerships with that. I'm just going to say it. They don't know, or they unaware, or maybe they want to, but feel like they don't have a support for it. We have a process of when we go through our partnerships and our vendors and well, not talking about vendors, but partnerships where we have criteria that they have to meet. They meet that criteria, then you should be able to move forward. Proposal should be sitting on someone's desk when the kids need the services and supports right now. Like, kids don't have time to wait. They need it now. And when we let it sit on these desks and not do what we're supposed to do to execute and implement, they lose out on what they need. And that's not fair to them at all. So I don't like when we have holdups for unnecessary reasons. I think that it's an opportunity, a coachable moment for those who do that, to kind of change that around. And if they don't, I mean, you know where the door at, because we're in APS, we serve students.
Right. Well, I appreciate that, Ms. Sherelle. I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Actually, I was sitting back and enjoying the conversation. And so I appreciate you, Ms. Mitchell, for coming in and sharing with the community what you've done for the people in District 5. So then, can you tell a little bit about the schools that are in your district?
Yeah, so I have about, let me see, count. Hold on, give me 1 second, because I want to make sure I'm accurate. I don't like leaving people out, my schools out. So elementary schools, 1, 2, 3, 16 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 2 single gender schools, 6 through 12, and then 2 high schools. Northwest Atlanta, parts of Southwest Atlanta. The Mays cluster, and the Douglas cluster, and the Bolton Academy school that is in the North Atlanta cluster, and then the charter schools. So that's 23 schools total. That's a lot of schools.
For certain.
We have diversity in all our schools, pretty much. And when I say diversity, you have students from different type of socioeconomic background, along with population of Hispanic and Latino kids in our schools as well. And then some schools are predominantly Black, and you have a little percentage of white students. So it's just, how can I put it? Tell you about my schools. We are, the Douglas cluster is a STEM cluster, and the Mays cluster is a baccalaureate cluster. I will say, because this is difficult for me, because I can tell you every unique thing about one of the schools, but I don't want to leave anything out for someone, because I start bragging about one, I got to brag about them all. You have to, because like I said, the principals work really hard. The STEM cluster, which is Douglas cluster, from my understanding, is agricultural focused, STEM agriculture, which is very unique. Some people like agriculture. Yeah. Well, agriculture is going to be it's the number 1 top industry. Right. Because everybody has to eat. Right. And so my thing is, like, if you have that uniqueness and of a signature program, then aligning pathways, technology, innovation will help prepare those students from K to 12 through 12 for the workforce that the future holds. Our International Black Laureate allows a cluster, which is MAIS, allow our students to focus more on international studies and but not limited to, if still embracing some of the mathematics and science as well, but it's just a different approach. Again, aligning resources and pathways for those students to be competitive for a global workforce, not just Atlanta, but global. Global is the key. But our schools are very strong. They're very deep rooted in the community. A lot of our schools are named after prominent African Americans who once did a phenomenal who was phenomenal people in the city of Atlanta. And, you know, and did a lot of philanthropist work. And they're very unique, but they're very deeply rooted in our communities. These schools are.
I'm glad you said that. But I'm gonna hold that question for last because I think that's really important that you list that those individuals that were prominent members of our community and who contributed greatly, I think, to the progression of people in the city of Atlanta. So I'll go here. It is believed that the world's desire is not to again experience a global pandemic such as COVID-19. The pandemic highlighted the ugly truths of the educational system, the unique needs of students, and the often overlooked challenges of teachers, the unheard voices of students and their families. And it definitely told the stories of many unsung sheroes and heroes, our teachers and our parents, really. It captured disparities relating to education, health, communities, and economic wealth. As an active member of the current board and seeking to sit in that seat again, what were the challenges you bear witness to, and what concrete plans would you bring to the table that would assist the board and the district in their efforts to addressing the lingering challenges judiciously?
Yeah, so I'm a true believer in policy, and I'm going to explain why. One of the things that the board is tasked with is developing policy and not wordsmithing policy. Okay. The development of policy guides the district, gives the district the framework and structure on what implementations need to happen with administration. So you have your federal law, your state law, and then you have school district policy. That's where it ranks 1, 2, 3. And so through policy is how you are able to remove those barriers, dismantle certain systems. You kind of get on and say, given direction, this is what needs to happen. This is what we need to be done. Now you go and implement this. So when I look at policy, I look at the ability around literacy. We talk about the pandemic and the learning loss and how do we get back on track? Well, we have to come with this with a different approach. We got to be a little bit innovative, right? What we did in the past is not working because we're in a very unique space right now.
Right.
And one of the things that I knew before the pandemic, outside of mental health, because I'll touch on that in a minute, was kids still have difficulty learning how to read, write, and spell. Why is that? Because what I know from traveling around the world is that I've seen countries and school districts with no money, no funding, very little funding, very little bit of resources, okay? And everyone in that school can read, write, and spell. So what are we doing here with a $1.65 billion budget? Somebody tell me what's happening here. So I think it comes down to how do we support our teachers with the instruction that they need to roll out, and what type of curriculum that we're choosing to really enforce and foster and ensure that the students are learning how to read, write, and spell. So literacy is number one, because everybody come to school to learn how to read, write, and spell, and learn. And I've been focused on the literacy policy. I've been working with this policy and in partnership with board member Tamara Jones. Tamara Jones and I both serve on the policy committee, and we had an opportunity during the policy committee meeting is talk about the importance of literacy and why is it important for students to learn how to read and write and spell. And from there, I worked. She advocated for it. She was a new board member, and she was like, "We need to get this done." I was like, "I totally agree." And so I worked on the policy with the Atlanta Speech School. It helped with the part of the policy that needed the most what can I say the most around structured literacy and what that looks like, right? And not only structured literacy, but the roll out of what it would look like on administrative side, but not telling administration how to do it, but just knowing what those components are that need to be in the policy. Okay. So we got to that point where now, if we roll out this policy, you will start to see a shift in how teachers are trained to teach reading, how students learn how to read, and the supports and interventions that are in place from K to 12. Like, we're going to get you reading the third grade, but we're going to have different things embedded in your curriculum of study that still enforces the foundations, the phonics, and those different skills for you to learn how to decode words to read. And so that's a game changer. It's called the science of reading, right? It's evidence-based approach. This is what school districts outside of Atlanta have been doing, and they've seen gains, phenomenal gains. And it closed the literacy gap. So that's number one. And I want to get back up to your mental health, because that's a big part. I remember right before we shut down, I had started working on a trauma-informed policy around mental health. We have a lot of kids that deal with a lot of childhood adverse experience, traumatized, and everybody's trauma level is different. But coming to it in an informed way, in an informed approach, allows us to have systems of care in the school to ensure that they are serving the students. And our system of care includes a social worker, a counselor, a nurse, a mental health specialist, school psychiatrist, behavior specialist. These people to really understand what is truly happening to the child and how do we support the child and give them the necessary supports that they need. So once you remove that barrier, that child will be able to start learning, because a hungry child and a traumatized child cannot learn. It just doesn't happen. And so you remove those barriers from there, then you're able to teach them. And then you have a literacy policy that's going to be implemented. So now you change the direction that child will be going in by just through policy. And so the work doesn't stop. I can talk about restorative justice policy that was really needed, where you have students learn how to deal with their emotions, and not use conflict as what violence as the answer. And you learn how to resolve conflict through restorative practices, through conflict resolutions, through talking it out. These are skills that these children will need in life. And so we have to start preparing them for life and preparing them to live through life, but also have the necessary resources for them to be successful in school during this time. And so those are some of the things that I worked on, not excluding our student outcome focused governance, which help us to govern as a board in a manner that we have goals and expectations for the superintendent to meet. We, as a school board, we are only responsible for one person, that is the superintendent. And we have to put a great deal of trust in one person. So having a governance structure to help us guide us through that in partnership with the superintendent is key. It's so key. And so that helps to achieve the student outcomes we would like to see. If we say literacy is number one, numeracy is number two, whatever it might be, this is what we have to do to get to that point, to see our student outcomes and to see student achievement go up. So yeah.
Okay, you said a mouthful with that one, boy, and I liked how you tied those things back into the superintendent, and that the board is responsible for the superintendent and not the other way around.
Yes.
So often, I shouldn't say so often, what we have seen is that it has been the other way around. The superintendent has been guiding the board.
Yes.
And in some instances, and we know how that have worked out in the past. So we're hoping to see something completely different this time.
Yes.
And I trust that everybody has kind of embraced the idea that we don't know it all, so we need to start learning from past, and not necessarily mistakes, but just the past. So that we know what processes work and what don't work. So I'm glad you brought that up. So that is a great thing to talk about. But in looking at the pandemic, you mentioned about a number of things that occurred. So two things I want to talk about, and I don't hear. And I've been the mom that's been talking about a Target 2022. Because those are the children that spent the longest in the pandemic and had the least amount of support. But you graduated them, I shouldn't say you necessarily, the school district graduated them out without having literacy, but just the credits.
Yep.
But they're now in our community, and then we're looking at our homeless rate going up in the city, our crime rate going up in the city, our drug use going up in the city, creative violence is going up in the city, and we're wondering where it's coming from, and not really looking at what's occurred. Because if you can see the remnants in the children that are still in school, you can imagine those children who were sent out ill prepared, what you're seeing now. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, and I want you, I want you, and hopefully you'll take that back to the current board and say, hey, we're gonna have to start doing things a little bit different than what we've been doing, because it is having an effect on our communities. So with that being said, what behaviors of the current board and or its policies that are adverse or non-productive to effectively addressing the disproportionate discipline and suspension rate of boys, of students in schools in economically challenged areas, and more specifically, those students who have documented disabilities?
So that's something that we have to do a policy audit on, because not only if the policy is the direction, but if we have regulation and protocol and processes that are in place that contradicts the policy, then that's an issue. And so we have to do an audit of that too as well. So I can look at our discipline policy and say, okay, this policy is pretty straightforward. There's some accountability in there, and then there's some flexibility in there for the students, but then you got to look at the regulation and the implementation of that policy. And I think that's where the disconnect is. I know that's where the disconnect is a little bit, because it would policy say one thing and we're doing something else, so we got to go back and look at that and reevaluate, how is this policy serving students? Now, again, I said there has to be some accountability measures in there, but you shouldn't see a large number and a large increase of these students being suspended and disciplined the way that we've probably seen those numbers. And then also, I will say we have to have more intervention and prevention inside of the school before it gets to that point. One of the things I always ask, and I've been asking this since I've been on the board, and I still haven't got this answer, so hopefully Dr. Battle can help me with this one. When we have a student disciplinary action that comes before us, I always ask, what was done on the school level? What interventions took place? What was the plan to put this child back on track before we wind up before the board for an appeal?
Right.
And every time I get no answer. So we don't know what's happening in the schools. How can we fix the problem? How can we help the students? And if it's not the right type of intervention, then we might need to pivot and change some things. But we shouldn't see the numbers that we're seeing right now. And so that has to happen, and we have to have those conversations to get to the root of the problem.
Those numbers are staggering. And oddly, your dropout rate stats don't, the matching of those numbers, boy, let's just look at those. And in saying that, I know that my son was one that was graduated out and is not able to and is not able to take advantage of the opportunities of most students who graduated out in the year of 2022. And that's based on his disability and the lack of services and appropriate plans that were in place for him. But outside of him, I'm a proponent for all children, not just mine, because all of them matter. They all live in the city. They all either walk by each other, work with each other, play with each other, or talk about each other. So I'm thinking about what I don't hear anybody talking about the GNET schools or the families that come along with them.
Yeah.
So are you able to share what will you do as a sitting board member and a next board member to support those families that are in that situation?
So
and how can you help them get out?
Yeah, so that's interesting you brought that up, because I have been meeting and sitting in certain seminars regarding that. We have to do our programming a little bit differently around alternative education, like truly alternative education, not just put you in the building because you had a little minor infraction. No.
Right.
We're talking about how do we get in there and really rehabilitate that child, the student, work with the families, not talk at the families, and get things back on track. So it's all around the programming, bringing in the right programming, the right people. Human capital is so important. And we have to evaluate what is working, what is not working. We know what's not working. We need to make some changes. We do need to make some changes. And I'm not just saying that, because we really do need to make some changes.
Right.
But we need to identify the right program that's going to be the right fit, because every child is different. Every student is different. Every family is different. Every family is unique. And we have to go about that way. I hate hearing that, students didn't get what they need when they are with us. I hate hearing that, because why do we come to work every day?
Right.
I mean, I'm just being why.
Right.
If we're not doing our job, why are we here? And if this is not the job for you, maybe just, you might have to, switch, but we need people to show up and give 100% for all our students. We do. They're dependent on us. So I hear what you're saying. What will I do? I'm looking into different programming. I've submitted a couple of them to Dr. Battle, her administration, to look at, to see if there's some opportunity there to do it a little bit differently that will serve the child, the student, a little bit better.
Right.
But no, we cannot forget those students. They're our students as well.
Well, the odd part about it is that, when we see them as babies, they're soft and sweet and smell good, but they grow up.
They sure do.
And whether they want to be graduated or put out of school, or forced out in any kind of way, they are, and they end up in the streets not knowing what to really do. Because even adults who have somewhat of a plan, we're at a loss at some point and need guidance. But if you don't give it to me prior to, then I won't even have anything as a substance to attach that to. So, those are the things that concern me and the people that are in my community. They're concerned about that. And the reason why I'm going to get to the other part, but I'm looking at two things. Black students are 2 times as likely to be subjected to school-related arrests compared to their white counterparts, as studied by the American Bar Association. How do you propose to address that issue? And how can you bring it before your colleagues and have them to look at that as an issue in our city?
So one of the things I will say, and I did what was it called? A panel discussion about the criminalization of Black boys and Black girls. It's how we ourselves approach our own. So we have to change the way we do that, and not look at them in that space, and you have to build relationships with these students, because I tell you, if you build a relationship with them, they would trust you. They would tell you. It opens the door to have those conversations to de-escalate a lot of different situations.
Right.
But when we don't do that and we look at them differently, we talk at them and we treat them in such a criminal manner, then guess what? How they gonna behave? You think
Right.
about it. I mean,
Right. Expectation.
expectations, yes. So we have to lead a little bit different. We got to lead with love and care and understanding of our students, because they come to us with all kind of things that's going on.
Right.
They do, but we have to be able to break that down to get the best of them out of them, so they can be who they can in school, but with those support services. So looking at it from a holistic approach, what would I do differently as a board member, as a sitting board member, is looking at what we are currently doing and not tweaking, but modifying that in such a way that it will serve our students differently to get the outcome that we want. Working with Dr. Battle, working with her team to identify those opportunities there. But it starts with the mindset and how we treat each other. That's the starting point. But you have to have a leader who understands that, and have a leader who's not going to put up with mistreatment of students, because that's where it starts at. They learn listen, children come into this world with a clean slate. Everything that they see and do is learned from adults.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I agree.
And we have to rehabilitate them and guide them and lead them in the right direction.
Well, that's well said, because that is how we learn. And you know, unfortunately, adults don't want to accept that we're the teachers.
Yeah.
You know, when a baby lays his eyes on his mother, the mother is an adult.
That's right.
And she's not laying eyes on the baby, expecting the baby to grow up and then become that person that she is. So I guess my last question, because I see Ms. Howard done come back on, so that must be my timekeeper. But my last thing I want to ask you is your experience on the board, and as your understanding of all the challenges, which allows you to effectively, you know, advocate for meaningful change for the students in your district and all children, from what I can see, because I've been on some of the meetings with you and seen some of the community events you've gone to, and your efforts, you know, and I appreciate that, certainly. But my question I'm going to ask you is, understand the importance of a binding contract, right? And that binding contract being that of an individualized educational plans for students who are protected by federal law. And how can you ensure the students are receiving a valid IEP and related services? And how do you go back and take that to your colleagues and share that with them, that is a federally binding contract, and that those students are protected by federal law? How would you convey that information, and how can we move that forward?
And this is something we talk about all the time, but haven't really put any action behind it. We know it's federal law that we have to uphold and ensure that the IEPs of these kids are being upheld. 504 plans, that's federal law. I understand it, and we have put some measures in place to ensure that that is happening. Now, that's from a governance standpoint. That is it actually being done? We won't know until a parent reaches out to us and tell us that that certain things haven't been done. And that's just the honest truth. I wouldn't know until a parent told me, because the administration is not telling us. And a lot of times on the school level, there might be miscommunication and guidance, but I will say an audit needs to happen. That's for sure. And if there's additional training and coaching that needs to happen to ensure that the people who are managing the IEP cases are doing them correctly, then that needs to take place as well.
Well, based on the number of lawsuits that are brought,
yes,
I think that you are on the right track when you're saying that we need to do a complete audit. Because I think you would be amazed at how many IEPs are not valid. And if they are valid, they're not valid from the standpoint of services being rendered appropriately. So I appreciate you, and I Ms. Howell just let me go away with it, but these are questions that are dear and near to my heart and to the community in which I support. And so I ask these questions because I know I see you a lot of times supporting students of all kinds. Doesn't matter where they come from. I've never seen you shy away from a student, that lived on the north side or the south side, And so that part I appreciate. And I can always look, and I'll be like, in fact, I said to Ms. Howell, she was like, do you know who she is? I was like, I know who she is because she's the lady that supports everybody. So that's how I view you. And so I appreciate the work that you do on the board. I want you to continue to do that work. And if you have to scream and shout, and I know sometimes it's lonely at the top, but if you need community support, you got at least 2 numbers we know that you can call, and we'll get you some support behind you. So thank you for coming out and sharing with the community. Continue to make your stand and don't back down. Continue to move forward and not look back. And thank you for even standing with the children during the pandemic, because that's the time they need it the most. I appreciate it. And I want to turn it back over to Ms. Howell.
I appreciate it, ma'am. Thank you so much for those questions and them answers. Thank you for coming, Erika. I know we wrapping up. We got one more to go. If you're watching the recap, go check Erika out. Erika, tell them how to get in touch with you. And tell them when early voting starts. And make sure you put your stuff in the chat so I can share it.
Okay, so yes, get in touch with me. I think I'm on IG, Instagram, Erika Y. Mitchell. Yeah. Website is erikaYmitchell.com, and I spell it ErikaYmitchell. I have to say that because a lot of people put CK, C, and everything else. No, it's Erika. Okay. And I'm also I have a Facebook group page just for District 5. It's Atlanta Board of Education, District 5. Join the group. I try to put things in there all the time if you're on Facebook. And then, of course, our, I think it's Board of Education Board Member Erika Y. Mitchell page. And then I have Twitter, which I'm not on a lot. So forgive me for those who tag me. I check it maybe twice a month. I'm sorry. I'm just not a tweeter. And that's Mitchell 45, the number 5. And my phone number is 404-709-5515. Email address, erica.mitchell@apsk12. And I'll drop it in the chat. Early voting starts October 16th. Election day is November 7th.
Well, thank you so much, ma'am. This was so good. You have an awesome day. And we're going to try to come back around and have another space so that people can be able to come as early voting kick off and be able to just share what's going on, what's some new updates. I know voting precinct may have changed a little bit. So we're going to have a separate conversation about that before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for letting me know.
Yes. Yes. We're gonna have a conversation about that. And I need the community to know, go to your neighborhood association, check your voter registration cards, and make sure you're still up to date on everything. Things have changed, the map have shifted. And we're here to support you guys. Thank you so much, Erika. You guys have a great one.
Thank you. I just put
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.